When when Spain, was conquered, all right, basically the colonies in America were left on their own. Unlike Brazil, where the Portuguese king went to Brazil and set himself up there with his family, the Spanish king went to England, all right, and that's where he hid. So the Spanish colonies were pretty much left on their own, okay, because Spain had been taken over by Napoleon, and the people in the Americas, they didn't care for Napoleon, all right? They're like, we're not going to replace, the Spanish king with the French king, all right? So, they're like, you know what, we'll just do things on our own. And in fact, it was the Creoles, okay, once again, if you remember the Spanish caste system, all right? Creoles are Europeans who were born in America, okay? That was their only difference, all right? So they take over and they run the different Spanish colonies. Specifically here, they run Mexico for that time, okay? Now, we know that Napoleon is defeated in 1815. Napoleon's brother Joseph is taken away from Spain as well. And so the Spanish king is brought back. And now they're like, okay, we're back. You're our colony again, okay? And the people were basically like, no, we've been ruling ourselves for the entire time, and we've done a pretty good job, okay? And of course, this is the Creoles talking. They're basically like, yeah, no, we don't want anyone from Europe to come back and put us in second place again, okay? So when it comes to Mexico, okay, the first rebellion was started in 1810, and it lasted for about 3 years, and it was very, very quickly defeated, okay? Two priests were the leaders. It started on September 16th, and so just a little bit of trivia for y'all, especially since it's coming up. A lot of people mistakenly think that Cinco de Mayo, the 5th of May, is Mexican Independence Day. It's not. It's just a holiday to drink, okay? September 16th is Mexican Independence Day. That's the day they celebrate, okay? But of course, this rebellion is crushed rather quickly, okay? Now, fast forward about 11 years, okay? Obviously, Spain was conquered by Napoleon. Spain had been taken over, lost control. Now they're trying to reassert control, and they're trying to send, the Peninsulares back. And so in this case, various Mexican generals, and all of these leaders are Creoles. They are Europeans that were born in Mexico, okay? They declare Mexico independent. Spain tries to take them over, but the Mexicans are able to defeat Spain and become its own country. Now, just like in the United States, okay, the people in Mexico debated as to what type of government they were going to have, okay? Whether it was going to be a republic, whether it was going to be a monarchy, whether it was going to be something else, okay? In the end, the Mexicans decide that they want a monarchy, they want a king, all right? But they couldn't decide because they don't want to bring back a Spanish king, okay? They don't want to bring back anyone from Spain. And so they actually go out and ask different members of different royal families throughout Europe, hey, not the big brother, not the one that's going to become king, but how about the second brother or the third brother? You want to come to Mexico, become king of Mexico, all right? Nobody in Europe wanted to take that job.
How did they determine who to ask?
They just went to all the royal families, all right? Because in this case, they weren't going to ask Spain, okay? They asked the French. French said no, because Napoleon's already been beaten by now, and the French royals are back. They went to the Austrians. The Austrians say no, okay? Ironically, later, fast forward to 1862, the Austrians, it happens again. The Austrians do send one of their princes all right, to become Emperor of Mexico in the 1860s. They go to the English, they go to different Germans. Everyone said no. They're like, no way.
Was it a risk to say that?
You piss off Spain, number one. No offense, but there's all kinds of Mexicans in Mexico. Would an Austrian really want to go and live there, or someone from France, or someone from Germany? So it's like, no thank you. Thanks, but no thanks. Okay. Eventually, actually, what they do is they take one of the generals who actually fought against Spain, and so they're like, his name was Simón Iturbide, and they ask him, and he's like, okay, I'll be the king of Mexico. And so for the first couple years, Mexico is actually an empire, all right? But he does such a shitty job, all right? Because he was a general. He wasn't like royalty, whatever. They overthrow him after 18 months. So Mexico's only a kingdom for 18 months, okay? And then after that, they're like, okay, let's try something else. Unfortunately, Mexico ends up with unstable governments, with dictators, with really just shitty everything up until the year 2000. Today, okay, there is drug cartels and stuff like that, but not everywhere. And most of Mexico is actually pretty peaceful, and the government is actually pretty good. So it took about 200 years, all right, but yeah. Okay, they end up with not anything that's too good. All right, we'll go into a little bit more of Mexican history in the next chapter. Okay, but just as an FYI, when Mexico became independent in 1821, that's what it looked like. Okay, now it also included a lot of the Central American countries, but they kind of broke away while Mexico was fighting Spain. And does anyone know what happened to this part of Mexico? Yes, it became part of the United States. The United States invaded it and took it. All right, but this was Mexico right after independence. Okay, now looking at South America then. Okay, in South America, because it is so big, we actually have several things happening at the same time. But there were two main men that were the leaders of these revolutions. The first one, and he's Venezuelan. Out of Venezuela comes a man named Simón Bolívar. And a lot of people, and in a lot of history books, you will hear him referred to as the George Washington of South America, because he was responsible for the independence of a lot of South American countries. Okay? In Argentina, there was a man named Jose de San Martin who led the independence of Argentina and Chile and the countries of South America. Now, they were pretty similar because both of them had studied in Europe. Okay? Remember, they came from the Creole class. They were European. The only thing is that they had been born in America. Okay? But their parents, who had been born in Spain, had sent them to Spain and to Europe for their education. And so both Bolivar and San Martin got exposed to the ideas of the Enlightenment. They saw the corruption, and they saw the changes that could come about. And, they started thinking, life, liberty, property, everyone's entitled to that. Yes, consent comes from the governed, all of this stuff, okay? And so, when the same thing that happened in Mexico and Brazil happened in these countries, Spain is invaded, Napoleon takes over, the Spanish are unable to, control their colonies, all right? And so in this case, we do see several groups rise up and try to, control and take over the various colonial stuff, okay? And so from about 1810 until 1824, basically the same time that Mexico is fighting, okay, there are several independence movements in South America, all right? And they're either led, in northern South America, they're led by Simón Bolívar, In southern South America, they're led by Jose de San Martin. Okay, now they are able to defeat the Spanish fairly quickly. Okay, and basically what begins to happen though now is that yes, the people had united, and in this case, it was everyone, not just the Creoles, okay, the white Europeans that had been born in America, but also the various native groups, the various, African groups, and all of the mixed people, the mestizos, all right? They were all part of this independence movement. By the time Spain is kicked out, okay, we're in the 1820s, now suddenly the white Europeans, even though they had been born in America, were like, well, we're in charge now. And everybody else, all of the mixed people, the Africans, the natives, they're like, no. So basically we just replaced the white Europeans born in Europe with white Europeans born in America. Pardon my Spanish, they said, hell no, fuck no. All right, we want to be a part of all of this as well. Okay, and so like the 1820s part, it's basically now the white Europeans that are born in America fighting against all of the, the mixed, the African American, the Native American, like all of those groups that are rising up against them. Okay, and of course this includes Simón Bolívar and José de San Martín. Okay, they're actually hated. After, they got Spain kicked out. Some people still loved Bolivar. Anyone guess what country was named after him? Bolivia, yeah, they actually named Bolivia after him. So some people did appreciate him, but most of the groups were like, no, all right? He was part of that establishment that kept us, from advancing, okay? Now, obviously, we have several countries emerge, okay, from these areas that became independent. But, and this is one of the things, and it was Bolivar's dream and vision, not necessarily San Martin's. He did not want this separation, okay? He wanted all of the countries of South America to come together and be one giant country. Kind of like the United States, all right? Because the United States, and I know sometimes it's hard for us to imagine, but I know I mentioned it before, each of the colonies treated each other like a completely different country, okay? People were loyal to New York, to Massachusetts, to Virginia, and they only united because they had to, all right? And so in this case, Bolivar says, if the English colonies could do that, why can't the Spanish colonies do that as well? Let's put our differences aside, and together we can be extremely powerful. Together we can resist any country in Europe. And he's like, we can kind of be, and by now it's the 1820s, so the United States is kind of getting its feet rolling a little. And he's like, we could even compete with the United States because we're this giant mega country, and that's what they're trying to be as well, okay? It doesn't work. It works briefly because for a short time, some countries, Peru, Bolivia, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, are what's called Gran Colombia or Great Colombia. They become one country, but it doesn't last. It only lasts like 4 years before, the people start fighting amongst themselves over different issues. Okay, and as I mentioned, okay, Bolivar was hated when he died. All right, there's actually both a couple films, and stories written about his last days where he basically died of tuberculosis, but he died on a boat because nobody would let him die in any of the towns that this boat would dock at. They're like, what, you got that asshole boat? Get him out of here. All right, type of thing. He's the one that tried to unite us, but he just wanted to stay in power. So he's absolutely hated. It wasn't until he had been dead for several years that people were like, oh yeah, he did give us our independence. I guess we should be nicer. And so like in places like Colombia and Venezuela, now there's like statues to him and like all this other stuff. Okay, San Martin, he basically died in Ireland. He went to Ireland because everybody hated him in South America, once again, because he was part of that white European establishment. And he never went back. Like, you know, there's statues of him in Argentina, and nobody will tell you that part of history. But he basically got run out of town and had to go to Ireland to survive. Okay, and so what happens in South America is that basically local warlords take over much of the area. Okay, and yeah, I hate talking down about my own people, but all of the countries of South America, with the exception of Brazil, had like unstable governments. They had dictators, they had military dictatorships, they had like all of this stuff throughout like the 1800s and part of the even into the 1980s when I was a kid. You know, they still had dictatorships, they still had all of this stuff, all because, you know, they were just completely unstable from the beginning. And in the end, even though they got rid of these guys, even though there was fighting amongst the groups, the white European look-alike Creoles, they're the ones that maintained power with the support of warlords and landowners, which is why, and I mentioned this before, which is why today, you know, people see blonde hair, blue-eyed, and they're like, that can't be Mexican. I'm like, actually it is. It's the upper-class Mexicans, all right? Watch the Spanish channels, and you're gonna see people who look like, you know, sorry, Mercedes and Angelina, okay? Yeah, you know, they've got dark hair, but lighter skin, or Patrick over here. You're not gonna see someone who looks like Senor Santos, okay, you know, type of thing. And once again, not necessarily racism, but colorism, all right? Because they'll be like, oh yeah, Santos is Mexican just like us, just don't let the Americans see him, all right? You know, we're only gonna put the whiter Mexicans in front, or the whiter Colombians, or, you know, the Venezuelans, or whatever, okay? So, this map then, just before we move on, shows then everything in green was what was Gran Colombia, but it fell apart, like I said, within about 4 or 5 years. And so then these are the countries then that are established throughout South America, okay, Central America, and then of course Mexico, okay. This map now shows Mexico without the northern part. That's not to say there weren't other countries, as you look. There was a British colony, British Guiana, and stuff like that, you know, were part of, you know, the area, but for the most part, all of this became independent, okay? And it was thanks to Napoleon taking over Spain, okay? And allowing, you know, these areas to govern themselves for a little bit, okay? Questions on this, because we're going to totally change gears now. All right. So we have new countries, okay? And we actually started the chapter with this, talking about some of the changes that went on from 1750 to 1850. We've talked about the changes in political systems. Now we're going to talk about the changes in economics, okay? Remember that most European countries, starting at you know, in the 1700s, were ruled by the concept of mercantilism, where wealth is limited, money is power, power is money. It's a pie. The more slices I have, the stronger I am. The fewer slices Emily Land has, the weaker it is. So that's the thing. And of course, all of my colonies are to bring me more wealth and power, okay? The problem is that mercantilism typically only benefited the elite, all right? Because, you know, you're giving strength to the country, but who runs the country? The king, the nobles, and so they're the ones that are benefiting, okay? By the 1850s, all of this had changed. We're no longer a world economy run by mercantilism, okay? Now it's capitalism, okay? And we know that the theories, the books written by Adam Smith, okay, are the basis of this. So unlike mercantilism, okay, capitalism, there's unlimited wealth out there, okay? Everyone wants to get rich. You just have to go out there and hustle and do it, okay? And society will be better, your country will be better if we allow competition. So Emily's gonna make a widget, Angelina's gonna make a widget, sorry. Who's gonna make the better widget at a cheaper price? Okay, and the fact that they're competing against each other means that me, the consumer, will in fact end up with the best widget at the best price. Okay, what is motivating Angelina and Emily though? Money. Yes, they just want to make money. Okay, and so capitalism is the idea that somebody's greed is good for society as a whole. All right, and so in this case, you know, we see that number one, the things that before had been luxury items and had been reserved for certain things are now available to everyone. So I guess, you know, capitalism isn't that bad. All right, and of course, people then, someone doesn't create a product just because they like creating a product. They create a product because you make money, okay? Farmers start farming, you know, exclusively apples, all right? Anissa doesn't have an apple farm because she just loves apples and eats apples 24/7. She's like, I do sometimes, but that's not the point, all right? Why does she have an apple farm that's like 1,000 acres? To sell and have money, all right? And then she can buy other stuff, okay? So in this case, we start seeing that shift into like survival and making our country money, into producing so that we make money off of the stuff that we produce. Okay, now because mercantilism favored doing stuff for your mother country, we begin to see in Europe and Latin America the idea of free trade. You're not limited. Just because you're a Spanish person, you can only trade with the Spanish colonies. And if you're French, you can only trade with the French colony. No, now you can buy and sell with whomever, because what's the point? It's not to make your country stronger, it's what? To make money. So I'm going to sell to the Spanish colony, says Emily. I'm also going to sell to the French colonies and the English colonies and the Dutch colonies. All right, I'm going to sell to as many people as I can. All right, what facilitates this also, and it just happened, I mean, I guess a really good coincidence, is various technologies.
Did this shorten the wealth gap for a little bit?
Initially, yes, but then it makes it worse. Okay, it's actually, because now instead of the country having all the wealth, like the king and the nobles, it's, sorry, Emily, people like Emily who make a shit ton of money, and stuff like that. So yeah, okay. Now, okay, we enter a time that's known as the Industrial Revolution, okay, because, all right, technology explodes. All right, people invent things because remember, and I guess this is the one like the people point to, the positives of capitalism. All right, Angelina and Emily are trying to sell me the best widget at the lowest price. They're trying to get my business, and so yes, this naturally forces people to improve certain things, and this leads to the invention of things that will help either Angelina or Emily produce more widgets at a better price and better quality widgets, okay? And so we begin to see then, number one, okay, manufactured goods, because we have now technology producing them at incredible rates. What happens when you have a lot of something? The price goes down, Okay, because yeah, that's why I think they're purposely hiding those Stanleys at the back of the store, because if you only put 10 of them out, people go crazy and pay whatever. If you have like 500 Stanleys out on the floor, they're like, well, fuck this shit, I'm not paying, $80 or however much it is. They're purposely throttling this stuff. Now, before the Industrial Revolution, everything is made by hand. All right, and when you ask for something, you need something. I need clothing, so I go to a tailor and takes my measurements, makes everything by hand, specifically tailored towards me. Okay, yes, it's expensive. All right, but good quality, it lasts. I know Anissa, been my tailor for 20 years. Stuff like that. Okay, well, now that things are being produced quickly and cheaply, the price of that clothing goes down, but what does it do to someone like Anissa? Yeah, loses their livelihood, loses money, okay? Now, because we're making all kinds of clothes, we still need raw materials, but we need way more than we had before. So if you thought like the whole triangle thing with slavery, the manufacturer, it just gets worse, all right, for certain people, all right? And so in this case, societies that are able to manufacture stuff become rich and powerful. Europe, all right? Societies that don't, okay, Asia, Africa, parts of America, they fall behind and grow poorer, okay? And so this leads then to what we also call a consumer revolution, because beforehand, only certain people, only a very wealthy person could afford Anissa's prices for, handmade, tailored to fit clothing. Now that there's a ton of clothes out there, everyone can buy it. Granted, not the same quality, doesn't take as long, all right? And it's not like fitted to me. I think these sleeves are too long, as you can see, okay? But, all right, people can afford stuff, okay? People can afford more stuff. People can afford now to have certain luxuries, okay, that before were considered exclusive to the upper class, all right? Now,
Was the upper class, did they get upset about this, that their stuff is becoming more common?
no, because, and this actually comes to here, no, because they're making now stuff geared for the upper class as well. Okay, so yeah, oh yeah, everybody's wearing, the hoodie, all right, but guess what? We're gonna make you a special, okay? So yours will be exclusive, okay? Now, because we're trying to get people to buy stuff, okay? Let me back up. The word shopping, or to shop, it didn't exist in the English language before the 1830s, all right? Because people didn't just go buy stuff to buy stuff, okay? If you bought something, why did you buy it? You really, really needed it. And even then, most people made their own things, okay? Yeah.
So when did buying stuff become like, how do you show people?
We're looking at the late 1800s, early 1900s, so it didn't take very long. All right, within 40 years, you can show your status by what you have on. Okay, and in fact, okay, we get the birth also, for those of you who are business or marketing majors, the birth of marketing. Okay, now before this time, men are the only ones that are buying things, because they're the ones that eat, they're the ones that work, they're the ones that need different shit, okay? Well, what about their wives? Don't their wives want stuff? Don't they need stuff? What if we put certain things out that women absolutely must have? I mean, think we do. All right? Oh, and kids, okay? Don't they need stuff as well? All right, so in this case, and kind of going to what you asked about, fashion becomes an industry. all right? It's not about practicalness, because, you know, you need it to work, you need good clothes. It now becomes more about showing off how much wealth you have, all right? One mini example, okay? Throughout most of history, you know, marriage is a social contract, and it's done for either political or financial reasons. By now, things are changing, and so we're getting certain people marrying for, no, I'm not bitter, marrying for love, okay? But when women, you know, and men got married, it was a very simple thing, okay? Yes, you got a new dress, but you got something that was practical and that you would probably be wearing over and over and over again, okay? Then the Queen of England, Queen Victoria, got married in a white dress, which no one had ever done before. Guess what every other woman who saw pictures of that wanted now? They wanted a white dress for their wedding. They wanted to look like a princess or a queen. And so the fashion industry accommodated them. Now, it's super crazy expensive, especially for a dress you're only going to wear once, probably. How do we market that then? How do we help people to justify it?
This is the most important thing.
Number one, what is white supposed to represent? Purity. Your wife's a virgin, she's pure. If Kiara wears a blue dress, people are alright, so if you, whether she is or not, yeah, none of Santos's business, but, you want the world to feel she is when she is married. So we're gonna do the white dress for weddings. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, do you have to have a white dress at your wedding? After you were subjected to this marketing all your life? Yes, and it needs to be at least, you know, $3,000 from David's Bridal, blah, 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 blah. It's an industry, okay? Fast forward, you know, to today. Some of you are like, oh no, Santo, I'm getting married in jeans. You know, okay, fine. All right, but yes, this is how it started, and this is what it grew into.
Is that target the opinion that men have and other people's lives, or is it like more targeted towards women?
Targeted towards women, but also to justify, because Anissa wants this white wedding gown. How are we going to justify that expense for a dress that she's only going to wear once? She has to look pure in front of everyone. It's a social standard. It's, you know, so how you look became a thing. Like, seriously. Like, and I can joke with Anissa, we're friends. Like, if she wears like a purple dress, oh my God. Oh no. And her poor husband, like she's like no, and so yes, it's that thing, and that's where it started. This is how we get people to buy certain things. Okay, if I sew a certain logo on a shirt, then my shirt's better than your shirt, like type of thing. Okay, and oh, okay, and when it comes to the ladies, okay, we had never marketed to women before, but once again, and I apologize because these are certain outdated notions, although some people still buy into it. Hey, you know, show what you got. All right, you know, like it was focused on, you know, the curves, the figures. Okay, remember back then, larger women, you know, were desirable. So let's show the stuff. Okay, whereas men, men aren't out there to be fashion icons. You know, Patrick has to work on the farm all day, so let's make him tough jeans and a rough coat, and you know, like this will last you at least 10 seasons of herding cows, Patrick. All right, and so yeah, all right.
This is after, like, they have those poofy dresses that with the, okay.
Yeah, no, this is before. Yeah, those poofy dresses came out because of this. Because, I mean, you got to have wide hips because that's how you make lots of good babies. So let's emphasize that you have wide. So make the waist smaller, the hips stick out more. All right, because oh yeah, it looks like Dee, she's got good birthing. Yeah, so because we run a farm, we're gonna need at least 10 kids to like work the farm. So yeah, okay, and of course how can we clean it? How can we maintain it? All right. Well, this leads to the invention of washing machines, which is in the later 1800s. Okay. But obviously, you need something that you can maintain. All right. This also leads to the invention, because certain things like denim and whatnot, the invention of cotton underwear. People did not wear underwear beforehand. Sorry, I know that's gross. Or the rich, the elite, had like silky garments underneath. Underneath all their coats and petticoats and like the whole thing. And so I'll finish on this fun fact. Starting in the 1850s and all the way up into like the 1880s, 1890s, Utica, all right, was the center of the underwear industry with the union suit. Anyone know what a union suit is? It's the one-piece underwear with a little flap in the butt. So that's where no, seriously. Over 70% of union suits in the United States in like the 1880s came out of here. All right, if you don't believe me, just go over to Broad Street and all of the abandoned factories. They were once upon a time cranking out union suits like crazy. All right, so yeah, we will.